25 minutes after the hour, we are back with some quick political headlines for you. Governor Scott Walker planning on running again. The two-term Wisconsin Republican preparing for an official campaign launch today at a factory outside of Milwaukee. Walker is the only governor in American history to survive a recall and would be just the second governor to win a third four-year term in that state history. And the race for governor of Virginia is turning into a nail-biter with the election now just 2 days away. A brand new poll showing Republican Ed Gillespie is now ahead of Democrat Ralph Northam by 3 points. That's according to Optimus and Firehouse Strategies. That is going to be quite the race to watch this week. Pete?
It is, Abby, and I'm going to be at a diner on Tuesday morning for Fox and Friends, getting reactions from voters on the ground there in Virginia. We'll see. Well, it's not just the national anthem anymore. Now liberals declaring war on the Pledge of Allegiance. In the Washington Post, Bates College professor Christopher Petrilla claims that, quote, while the language contained in the pledge is not overtly nativist or xenophobic, the spirit that animated its creation was steeped in bigotry. He goes on to argue that its origins are in nativism and white nationalism. Here now to discuss is former professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University, Carol Swain. Professor, thank you very much for joining us this morning. So we've seen assaults, whether it's the national anthem, the flag, now it is the Pledge of Allegiance said in so many of our schools. On what basis is he making this claim that it's racist or xenophobic?
Well, I see it as part of an overall plan to destroy the symbols of our national identity, and ultimately it destabilizes the country and it strengthens the hands of our international enemies. I don't see any good that can come from constantly attacking our monuments and those things that make us, you know, who we are, those symbols of our national identity. Those are important, not just for us, but also for newcomers that come to this nation to join us.
Professor, you say that the use of grievances of racial and ethnic minorities is a classic tactic of the left, but not even just the left, of communists, that this movement is steeped in using racial identity.
Yes, and if you go back to Cleon Skousen, he published a book in the late 1950s called The Naked Communists. There were 45, at that time, he called them current communist goals. They were read into the congressional record in 1963. Most of those have been accomplished, and they included using the grievances of racial and ethnic minorities as a way, you know, to advance the communist goals. Also infiltrating our churches and discrediting the FBI, just so many of the things that have taken place. And so I would encourage anyone that wants to understand what's happening today in America to go to that book and find those 45 then current communist goals, read those, look at our nation, and let that judge whether or not Cleon Skousen was off base or was he on to something.
Interesting book, The Naked Communist, you say. I'm sure some folks will be looking that up for the first time. You say, in addition to the flag and the pledge, that Christianity, that faith is ultimately something they're going after as well.
Yes, and I can remember many decades when, as a African American, I was being told that Christianity was the white man's religion. And many of the people that I know who have abandoned Christianity for Islam, it was the white man's religion. I think that we see attacks on Christianity from the Southern Poverty Law Center, who now, an organization that now targets mainstream organizations, Christian churches. I think that's where they're ultimately going. And if that is the next step, we will all be losers, especially black people in America and those people that, you know, have been steeped in our Judeo-Christian traditions. That's what's really under attack. And anything that makes our nation exceptional, it seems to me that our international enemies, they want to destroy America. They're using our own people to do it from within.
That's such a great point, a poignant one. We're all in this together as Americans. We should be fighting back against ideologies seeking to divide us. Professor Carol Swain, thank you very much for your knowledge this morning.
Thank you.
All right, Hillary Clinton's email scandal is far from over. What the FBI just did that should have her worried. Plus, Maria Shriver filed for divorce from Arnold Schwarzenegger years ago. But guess what?
The divorce papers were filed in 2011. I was looking at this, and it's now 6 years later. You're not divorced yet. Why?
TMZ's Harvey Levin joins us live with what else Arnold revealed to him. That's a big sword. Next.
Does anybody want to take it life?
Welcome back to Fox and Friends Weekend, and we start with a Fox News alert. President Trump's first day in Japan has come to an end. The president ending his night by joining Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for dinner.
The pair discussing many topics, including North Korea, on the first leg of his trip to Asia.
And that is where we find John Roberts, who is live for us in Tokyo with the latest. John, you're going to be up all night.
Abby, all day, all night. It's kind of 24/7 when you come to Asia. Abby, Kevin, Pete, good morning to you. The president starting off his trip to Asia, touching down in Japan yesterday at Yokota Air Force Base just west of Tokyo, with a real show of strength, not mentioning North Korea by name, but standing before 2,000 American troops. There was Air Force, there was Navy, there were Marines there. The president sending a definite message to the rest of this Pacific Rim. Listen here.
No one, no dictator, no regime, and no nation should underestimate ever American resolve. Every once in a while in the past, they underestimated us. It was not pleasant for them, was it? It was not pleasant. We will never yield, never waver, and never falter in defense of our people, our freedom, and our great American flag.
Okay.
After spending some time with some clearly appreciative troops, the president spent the rest of the day with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, starting with lunch. And Prime Minister Abe, knowing the president's affection for hats, gave him a new chapeau that read, "Donald and Shinzo make alliance even greater." After that, the president, together with Abe and professional golfer Hideki Matsuyama, who is number 4 in the world rankings, got together for 9 holes of golf. And then the president later on in the evening, together with First Lady Melania Trump and Japan's First Lady Abe, got together for dinner. The president suggesting that when he meets with Shinzo Abe today, there will be a lot to do in a very short amount of time. Listen here.
We are in the midst of having very major discussions on many subjects, including North Korea and trade and other things, and we're doing very well. I think we're doing very well. The relationship is really extraordinary.
On his way to Japan from Honolulu, the president suggested that he will be meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on the sidelines of the APEC conference. That's in Da Nang, Vietnam, later on in the week. The president saying that he wants to enlist Putin's help in reining in North Korea, also suggesting that sometime later in the trip, he may put North Korea back on the list of state sponsors of terror. And the president also pushing back against reports that he comes to this trip in a position of weakness because of his poor domestic rating back home and the Russia investigation. The president tweeting out, quote, "Heading into the 12 days with great negotiating strength because of our tremendous economy." The president believes that the stock market and economic growth will outweigh anything else that may be dragging him down back home. Abby, Kevin, Pete.
All right, John.
Thanks,
Busy
John.
11 days to go. Good luck out there. Good to see you. All right. We do want to bring some other headlines and a serious one. A Fox News alert. The New York City Marathon is now underway. Runners leaving the starting line just over a half hour ago. The security is in full force for the event, especially after the terror thing that happened a week ago, which comes when 8 people were killed in that terror attack. Federal, state, and local law enforcement are spread throughout the city to make sure everything goes smoothly. Also, the FBI turning over new documents to Senate investigators for the probe into Hillary Clinton's private email server. The memos will assist in the review of former Director James Comey's handling of the case. They detail how and when the FBI and Comey decided not to charge Clinton for her handling of classified information on a private email server. And both former Bush presidents bashing President Trump in a new father-son biography. George H.W. Bush calling him a, quote, blowhard. Corey Lewandowski, the president's former campaign manager, joined us earlier on the show, and here's what he said.
They probably wanted Jeb to do very well, but they really ran a terrible campaign. We know this. He was a low-energy guy, and the American people wanted something else.
Well, the book on the Bush's legacy is called The Last Republicans. And Larry David pulling off another hilarious impersonation of Bernie Sanders on Saturday Night Live last night during The Price is Right. Watch the skit.
Just want to say this show is a travesty. Consumerism disguised as entertainment. That being said, I do need a new dinette set.
He is so good at Bernie Sanders. Well, it wasn't all fun and games, though. David is now facing some backlash on social media for concentration camp jokes that he made apparently during his opening monologue. I was asleep, so I didn't hear that, but
I didn't hear him
They
either.
were bad.
I'll be checking it.
All right.
Too bad. Well, moving on now. He's one of the most fascinating figures in America, from bodybuilder to actor to California governor.
And nothing is off limits for Arnold Schwarzenegger when he sits down with Harvey Levin, including a scoop on the Terminator. Watch.
Jim Cameron said when we came out with Terminator, he said Terminator would have never worked if Schwarzenegger wouldn't have talked like a machine.
Were you his first choice?
I think that the first choice was O.J. Simpson.
Why did they not go with O.J.?
That he didn't look as much of a killer and all that stuff. So I don't know. I mean, it just felt like I was more believable in being the machine.
I literally have to hold on to this table after hearing that.
An interesting comment.
Wow.
Joining us now is TMZ founder and Objectified host, Harvey Levin. Welcome, Harvey.
Harvey, wow. That really shocked all of us.
Yeah, and I mean, just and by the way, he actually shows me something that, you know, the iconic poster of Arnold as Terminator, they actually designed it for O.J. Simpson, and he shows me part of that.
idea.
Yeah, no, I was shocked at that myself.
Harvey, how do you, where do you start with someone like with Arnold Schwarzenegger? So many iterations of his life.
Yeah, I mean, he is an amazing man. He is just an incredible guy. The fact that this guy grew up in poverty, post-World War II in Austria, and that's where we started. We started it with his childhood, and it really is amazing because when Arnold was 10 or 11 years old, he had the concept, I want to go to America. Not just go to America, but there was a guy named Reg Park who was a very famous bodybuilder who played Hercules. And Arnold Schwarzenegger connected with him and said, you know what? I can be the most famous bodybuilder in the world, and then I can become the biggest movie star in the world. And he actually formed that idea at 10 or 11 years old. And the crazy thing is, kids think about that stuff all the time. He pulled it off.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how he did it.
And amazing how his career even changed since then. You got into some personal things, like his marriage.
Yeah, look, I mean, everybody kind of knows, what happened to Arnold about 6 years ago, and Maria Shriver filed for divorce. We started looking before we did the interview. They're not divorced yet. And, and I talked to Arnold about it, and I will say, look, he has had a long relationship with Maria Shriver. I mean, since the early 80s, they produced 4 kids. They love these kids. They love these children. And it is still a very tight family bond. They spend a lot of time as a family together. And no matter what happened, they are a family still. And the dynamic of all of that is really interesting.
So, Harvey, what is the significance of the sword in Conan the Barbarian?
Well, the significance is that it shows my weakness because I could barely hold it. So that's number one. It was super
It's bigger than
heavy.
your bicep.
It was super heavy. But God, I mean, look, what we do in the show is we tell people, we usually divide their lives into 7 chapters. And, and we say, you pick the object that resonates with you most that kind of represents that period. And just the idea that he picked the sword for, the movie business was awesome. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger has had one of the richest lives of anybody I've ever met.
Well,
and I don't mean rich in money. I mean just rich in texture.
Yeah.
He holds that sword and makes it look like it's light as a feather.
I know.
Wait till he hands it to me. You won't see that.
That is a great tease because Objectified is airing tonight at 8 p.m. on the Fox News Channel. We love the show, Harvey, and we always love catching up with you. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right, we are getting fiery on the plaza with science experiments that you will not want to miss.
Plus, Vice President Pence going one-on-one with Maria Bartiromo. Does he think we can get tax cuts by Christmas? Maria does a good job scooping interviews, and she's going to preview her new exclusive next.
Hi, guys.
Good morning.
How are you?
How are you?
Good morning.